Hi, gang. Here is your Tuesday poll question at smirconish.com. If Democrats retake the House in the midterms, will they impeach President Trump for accepting the Qatari jet? Notice I said will, not should. That was deliberate, and I will explain. First, thank you to Bet Parks and my friends at Play Gun Lake, New York, Philadelphia, Detroit baseball, plus the pro golf tour, MMA fights, hoops, hockey, everything is going on right now. It's a great time of year. You can live bet it all, wager and watch. Live betting is better on the Bet Parks app in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland, and the Play Gun Lake app in Michigan. You can bet individual player performances in baseball. We're talking hits and home runs and ribbies and strikeouts, everything, rebounds, and all the pro hoops action as well. Whether your team wins or loses, there's always another way to win for you on the BetPark Sportsbook and online casino app and the Play Gun Lake Sportsbook and online casino app. The only apps that I use and recommend. Play with live dealers on your phone. Play solo from wherever you are. Warm weather coming, you can be on a beach chair and enjoying all the action and entertainment. Go to betparks.com or playgunlake.com. Download the app right now and enjoy all the action and excitement from your fingertips. You've got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Maryland for the BetParks app. You've got to be 21 and in Michigan for the Play Gun Lake app. You love to play, you play to win, you bet. So BetParks and bet Play Gun Lake. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, here is the result from the Monday poll question at smirconish.com. A lot of voting, 35,222. Anybody remember room 222? Wow, I'm dating myself. 35,222 votes on this question. Would you pay more for an American-made product over a cheaper import? We all talk a pretty good game, right? But how many of us will actually do it? I was motivated to make this the poll question yesterday because of all the tariff talk, because yesterday the big story was the 90-day pause in the tariff war between China and the U.S., but also because there was a lab experiment of sorts that I initially read in Business Insider and put in yesterday's newsletter. It was about this business called Afina. They sell self-filtering shower heads. And Ramon Van Meer is the owner of it, and he was faced with this 145% tariff on Chinese-made goods. So he decided, okay, here's what I'm going to do. His goods, the shower head, a combination of China and Vietnam in terms of their manufacturing. So he decided what he would offer. 25,000 shoppers was a choice. The original 129 made in Asia shower head, $129, or what would it take if you actually made it in the United States? In this instance, $239. He took 3,500 orders, and how many do you think opted for the Made in America at the higher price? Zero. A Blutarski, a 0.0. So I thought that's really fascinating. I mean, my answer, and I know most of your answer is, if it's apples to apples and if I have to pay a little bit more, sure, I'm going to take the American product. But to go from 129 to 239 was just a bridge too far for many. So the outcome yesterday of the poll question, would you pay more for an American-made product over a cheaper import? 54.47% said no. Not going to do it. Let's call it 55-45 in terms of the outcome, the showerhead outcome on the poll question. Okay, today, the Tuesday poll question concerns deplane. Am I dating myself again? First with room 222 and now thinking about Fantasy Island. Mr. Rourke, tattoo, somebody, anybody, late 70s, early 80s. President Trump has arrived this morning in Saudi Arabia, and then he's on to the United Arab Emirates and to Qatar. I've never been to Saudi Arabia, and as I recall, for the trip that I'm about to briefly reference, we weren't permitted to fly over Saudi Arabia, but I have been to UAE and I have been to Qatar, strangely enough. It was in the aftermath of September 11. I was a military tourist. I was on a trip at the request or invitation of the Department of Defense under Secretary Donald Rumsfeld because DOD wanted select citizens to see how they were waging the war against terror and the events in Iraq in particular. So never been to Saudi Arabia, but have been to the other two. An amazing trip. Trump's trip, very interesting to watch for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that Israel is kind of sidelined in this trip after Netanyahu recently was in the Oval Office and spoke of the allegiance between the two. But I think that Bibi's probably a little bit miffed that Trump is continuing the conversations with the Iranians, which I think is a good thing. Talk is always a good thing. And now saddling up to Saudi Arabia. My recollection is that in Trump 1.0, I'm 82% sure of what I'm about to say. Saudi Arabia was also his initial visit because I've got that vision of the orb. Do you remember? It kind of looked like a mirror ball that some people put in their front yards, although not so much anymore. This is his first official overseas visit. And yes, I know some of you are saying, what about the papal funeral? True, unplanned, right? The blue suit, but it was an unplanned visit. This one he had in mind all along, is what I'm trying to say. And just before his departure, gets a big boost. President Trump gets a big boost from the 90-day pause in the tariff war with China, which, as I predicted, but no rocket science on my part, we all knew this would happen. The markets went crazy yesterday. So President Trump got to leave the United States with a bit of a bounce in his step, not something that I could have said for the prior several weeks. But again, here comes the unforced error. Here comes the unforced error. Just at a time when the market is back to a level surpassing where it was on Liberation Day, he seems determined to accept this $400 million jet from Qatar as a functioning Air Force One. Trump said a stupid person. He'd be a stupid person not to accept a gift of a 747-8, called it a great gesture by Qatar, said that he intends to use the plane for a couple of years while his administration waits for a pair of Boeing planes to be completed according to the strict military standards benefiting Air Force One. He's been upset that the planes that he ordered in Trump 1.0 are way behind schedule and way over budget. And he's had Elon Musk, as a matter of fact, involved in this, trying to see what's the problem and how it can be turned around. I have so many questions and so many concerns about this, but chief among them, we'll talk about the emoluments clause in a moment, but chief among them is, how in the world are they going to outfit this plane in the time necessary? Unless Trump dramatically suspends the security concerns, there's no way they can do it. I'm looking at the Washington Post. Retrofitting the 13-year-old aircraft to current Air Force One requirements would take years of work and billions of dollars. Current and U.S. officials say such a task would be impossible to complete before he leaves office, unless he throws all that out the window. And it does seem like it's a pretty clear violation of the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Trump's defense is to say, well, I'm not the recipient. The Department of Defense is the recipient. But on the subject of those security concerns, quote, the president's jet has a raft of security, says WashPo, communications and support requirements that are highly classified and have proven costly and cumbersome. Then a former U.S. official with knowledge of Air Force One said, this is a flying, nuclear-hardened command post. It has to have secure capability at multiple levels. The Air Force would have to rip open and rebuild the Qatari plane, which has flown for years in service of other countries and other individuals, to bring it up to standard. Counterintelligence is also a current concern. According to an Air Force former secretary, Frank Kendall, we would have to be sure that nobody had planted bugs on the airplane. I mean, have you seen the interior of this plane? We have two stories today, more than two stories today in the newsletter about this whole controversy. But one of them, from Semaphore, I think, is photographs of the interior. All of that which he loves, all of the gold, all of the glitz, would have to be torn apart in order for them to make sure that it's not a security risk. And high-end communications have to be protected from jamming and cyber attacks and nuclear blasts. Mac Plyak is a retired Secret Service agent, worked for Barack Obama. You'd pretty much have to take that plane down to the skeleton and put it back together. The security of every individual component is a big deal. So it just doesn't make sense in terms of a turnaround and security standpoint, unless he says, I'll take it the way that it is. And then the intelligence community, I think, is going to be very concerned, but they'll probably be afraid to confront him. From NPR's coverage of this, I like, because they went to the legal authorities, law professors, and ethics scholars to talk about some of the legal issues here. So, for example, Richard Briffault is a Columbia law professor who specializes in government ethics, says that the distinction, Trump saying, I'm not going to be the recipient, DOD will be the recipient. This professor says it doesn't matter. If the plane goes to Trump's presidential library after he leaves office, then it's not really a gift to the United States at all. He says accepting the plane would constitute a personal gift and represent a pretty textbook case of a violation of the emoluments clause. Like other ethics experts, he worries it could lead to Trump feeling beholden to the Qatari government. The professor says gifts are designed to create good feelings for the recipient and get some kind of reciprocity. But the thing that Trump can give, of course, is public policy. And this professor is not alone. A vice president in communications for the nonprofit watchdog Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, Jordan Leibowitz, told NPR the gift is especially concerning because of Trump's personal business dealings in the Gulf and Qatar. Yeah, the Trump Organization, which Trump handed control over to his sons, but they never pledged that they wouldn't be making business deals during the course of his second term, which they did say in the first term. Leibowitz says clearly he's trying to make money there. They say this is an absolutely unprecedented gift. And then something else that I found of interest, which gives rise to today's poll question, Professor Briffault from Columbia says the only way that Congress can prevent the gift or reprimand Trump afterward, is by impeaching him, which seems unlikely given Republicans' control of both chambers. It's not clear what they can do. I mean, there's not much control on the president. Trump has ignored many of the existing guardrails, from firing over a dozen inspectors general of federal agencies to ousting the head of the Office of Government Ethics. I'm not sure there is, frankly, anything to be done other than public reaction. Well, okay, but I'm taking that to a next step, and I'm saying I expect that Democrats will retake control of the House of Representatives in the midterm. It's kind of a no-brainer to me. You can remember this date. It's May 13. And if I'm wrong and Republicans maintain control of the House, then call me up and tell me you blew it. So the question becomes, if Democrats retake the House, and if this is such a no-brainer, will they impeach Trump? The Emoluments Clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, shucks, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Trump can say it's the DOD that's the recipient of this. And by the way, remember, there were a number of emolument complaints raised against Trump in 1.0. The one that is top of mind for me is he then owned the Trump International Hotel, the former postal building, I think, just a couple of blocks from the White House. And the complaint at the time was that foreign governments, if they wanted to curry favor for Trump, they would make sure that their delegations always stayed at that hotel. Hotel is spectacular, by the way. I've never stayed there. I've just gone and had a cup of coffee in the lobby, which is tremendous. And he has since sold it. But my point is, this has come up before, and when it finally got to the Supreme Court of the United States, they punted because he was now out of office. Aaron Blake, writing in the Washington Post today, I'm just trying to give you, doing the weave, but I'm trying to give you all the information necessary for you to have an informed opinion on the poll question. Aaron Blake, it's one of the most telling occasions in politics these days when President Trump does something so obviously problematic that even the Trump-friendly opinion hosts at Fox News feel compelled to press his team on it. And such was the case on Monday, amid reports that the Trump administration is considering accepting a gift of a multi-hundred-million-dollar palace in the sky, that's what they call it, the aircraft from Qatar to use as Air Force One. Aaron Blake says the potential gift raises major concerns not only about the security, but also about the corruption, the self-dealing. Here we would have a president in the first year of a 4-year term accepting a historic and extraordinarily expansive gift from a foreign government that has plenty of interests in his administration's actions. The plane could seemingly be transferred to Trump's personal use later on, though Trump said Monday that he would not use it. Some experts have told the Washington Post that this would transparently violate the Constitution's emoluments clause. The plan is apparently, I'm out of Aaron Blake now, the plan is apparently that this becomes a part of his presidential library somewhere in Florida, probably near Disney World. That just occurred to me. I could see Orlando as being the appropriate place. And I'm sure what Trump has in mind is to go Reagan one better. Because you've heard me describe, and many of you have been there, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures. The Reagan Library in Simi Valley is stunning, for not the least of which reason is that the Air Force One on which Ronald Reagan most often flew was disassembled and put back together in the Simi Valley Reagan Library. It's phenomenal. And it's suspended, from the ceiling, and you look out into this glass as if you're coming in for a landing. It's amazing. So I assume that's what he has in mind. Polling data, there's not too much on Trump's alleged corruption, but the polling we do have points a consistent picture that people are at least concerned. 61% of Americans say that behaved corruptly, quote unquote, describes Trump at least somewhat. That's a Marquette Law School poll. And more than 6 in 10 Americans said the word corrupt applied to Trump either a lot or a little. The political question becomes one of what's the recourse? What would Democrats do? Because Republicans are silent so far. As I said, I think they retake the House. That's what usually happens in a midterm. Sometimes it's a shellacking. If you remember on Obama's watch, the GOP has a very narrow margin right now. So if Democrats take the House, the question then becomes, would they impeach, making it the third time that Trump would be impeached? By the way, very quickly, in your mind, what was he impeached for the first time? I'll bet many people have to pause. It was the perfect phone call with Ukraine, with Colonel Vindman listening in. Of course, January 6th led to the second impeachment. Each failed to they got the majority in the House, which is what's required, because remember what's grounds for impeachment. You need an impeachment vote by the House of Representatives, which requires a simple majority, and then removal by the Senate is 2/3, 67 of 100 senators. Treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Intentionally broad has historically included abuse of power, obstruction of justice, and other serious misconduct. And in this case, it would be a violation, presumably, of the emoluments clause of the Constitution. The poll question today at smerconish.com, I'm asking you to forecast, look into the future, and tell me if Democrats, because that's the way I worded it, if Democrats retake the House in the midterms, will they, not should they, will they impeach Donald Trump for having accepted the Qatari jet? By the way, to me, it's an unforced error, and the practicality of him being able to use it, even though they say that plane is in Texas right now, that right now it's in Texas and perhaps ready to undergo the work that would be necessary. But unless he waives the security considerations, I don't think he gets to use it, which tells me he must be planning to waive them. Go vote at smerconish.com. Go vote, go vote, go vote. If Democrats retake the House in the midterms, will they impeach President Trump for accepting the Qatari jet? Please like and subscribe. Like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications. If you're part of the 60,000 plus who have already subscribed to my YouTube page, I thank you. Have a great day.